Now that Open Fight Night and the move to 8 p.m. are out of the way, TNA finally seemed to realize that they have a pay-per-view this weekend. We had a lot of last-minute hype for Slammiversary, they announced the rest of the card. As expected, though, a good chunk of the matches did come out of nowhere. Case in point, Hogan puts Anderson, Hardy, and Van Dam in a #1 contenders match where the winner will get his shot at the World Champion next week on Impact. Now insert any rant you want about TNA using a match on one of their biggest shows of the year to hype an Impact match, but as we all know by now, as far as TNA are concerned, it's pay-per-view, TV ratings. So it's just an ass-backwards aspect of this company that we have to deal with. And these three don't have any real storylines going on at the moment. I mean, you had to get them on the pay-per-view somehow, so as a last-minute fix, I guess this works. But man, of all the people to throw into a randomly booked match at the last minute, I was legit shocked that so little attention was paid to them. Not shocked in a bad way, mind you, but considering these are Hogan's boys, I did not see this coming. Also, we're getting Austin Aries versus Samoa Joe at the pay-per-view. Because apparently, spraying someone in the face with a water bottle 2 weeks before the show is all the build-up necessary to justify a match at Slammiversary. Okay, whatever. No, I'm not crapping on the match. I'm as excited to see it as anyone. But you have to admit, that came right the fuck out of nowhere. So we start off with some post-show stuff from last week, with Dixie going on a rampage, trying to find out how that audio of her and AJ's phone conversation made it on the air. I've never thought Dixie Carter was very good in an on-screen role, but this was probably her best performance. She was at least believably angry. They're sticking with the reality-based approach, everything feels very raw, it doesn't seem rehearsed, and it's good stuff. I found it pretty compelling. Then they went to the ring, and Dixie started trying to cry. God, I wish she would stop doing this. She's trying really hard to sell it, but Dixie Carter is just not a natural actor. What's more, she always looks terrified when she has to perform in front of the crowd. And I don't know why they always seem to have her be a complete emotional wreck when they use her in storylines like this. She's the president of the damn company, and yet she's always acting like things are completely out of her control, so much so that it constantly reduces her to tears. Am I the only one bothered by this? That can't be a good message to send to the audience. Why can't she just act like the president and use her power to at least try to deal with these situations instead of always playing the helpless victim?
This whole show is ridiculous!
So Dixie tries to explain the AJ thing. Kaz and Daniels interrupt her, it gets a little uncomfortable, and they're pretty close to turning Daniels into a woman beater until AJ drives them off. Then Dixie's husband Serge comes out and punches AJ in the face, and nothing was really resolved here. Really good stuff in this segment, minus Dixie's attempt to act all distraught. Yeah, we're finally getting some real progression with this storyline. It's becoming more messy and uncomfortable for all the right reasons, and that makes for good drama. If they drag it out much longer, I do get the feeling that the reveal of the big secret may not live up to the hype, but this is one of the more compelling storylines on the show now that it's finally going somewhere. The one drawback was that Kurt Angle was nowhere to be seen, and I don't think the tag title match at the pay-per-view was even mentioned. It's a hot angle, but did it do its job in selling that match? I don't think so. Hey, this was interesting. Austin Aries versus Crimson. They went for a few minutes. It was good enough that it actually made me want to see a future pay-per-view match between these guys. Then Samoa Joe interferes and Crimson wins. So we've got Joe versus Aries lined up for this Sunday now, based largely on a shared history between these guys that they're alluding to, but casual fans who don't know what Ring of Honor is probably won't have any idea about. This would probably have been more effective if they'd elaborated on what their history is. Maybe they could have Joe cut a promo saying, "Before I came to TNA, I was the world champion of another company. Austin Aries ended my title reign. I've waited years to get payback, Aries, and now Joe's gonna kill you." But it seems like they just want to leave it up to people's imaginations. Smart marks will know what this is about, but are casual fans going to buy this feud based on what little they've seen? From their perspective, Aries sprayed Joe with a water bottle, and now they're having a pay-per-view match based on a mutual history that was never even mentioned until now.
This whole show violates everything about my journalistic integrity.
I'm going to mark out for the match, but there was no build-up here. The writers are relying on stuff these guys did in a smaller company years ago before they came to TNA to sell this without really creating a feud for them. Why did they wait so long to build this up? They might get a few ROH fans to watch, but for casual fans, it might have been too little too late.
I was a war correspondent, and now I'm covering this!
Also, Crimson cut a promo issuing an open challenge for this Sunday to anyone in or outside the company. I don't know what the plan is for that, whether it's Matt Morgan or John Morrison or someone else, but they're really playing up his win streak here, and I think it would be a mistake to end it right now because it's finally getting over. It all started to click when Crimson turned heel a couple months ago, and he was getting some real heel heat with this promo. I say let's keep this going. His unbeaten cocky prick routine is starting to connect with the audience, so to cut him off now would be the wrong move in my opinion.
Thank you for your irrelevant opinion.
Brooke Hogan has a backstage segment with the Knockouts. She makes a #1 contenders match and tells Velvet Sky that she got her booked in Montgomery Gentry's new music video. Interesting reaction from Mickie James there, and in the following match, looking a little bit heelish, so they're teasing that again. And at this point, I think that would be a really good idea if it were done right. Turning Mickie heel after she's been a face for so long, I think that would be the perfect way to refresh her character, and to shake up the status quo of the Knockouts at the same time. She should bring back Psycho Lesbian Mickie. I miss Psycho Lesbian Mickie. That was one of my favorite diva characters ever. This was surprising to me because after they made such a huge deal about bringing in Brooke Hogan last week, I was expecting them to give her the Karen Jarrett treatment, where everything is about her, and all the Knockouts are just cannon fodder to get her more over. And that's not what happened. This segment, it was quick, it was painless. Brooke made the match, she got Velvet a gig which will get the company some exposure outside of wrestling, and that was the only time we saw her all night. And as I'm watching this, I'm saying to myself, wow, that was actually helpful. Maybe I was overly skeptical of this because of the Karen Jarrett thing, and in my defense, I think that skepticism was earned. But considering what this could have been, it wasn't bad. It wasn't all about Brooke Hogan. She seemed to genuinely want to help the Knockouts. She was there in a supporting role to put them over, rather than them being there to put her over like we saw with Karen. I still don't see why this is really necessary, but if this is all Brooke Hogan is going to be there doing, then I'm fine with it. I'm going to take this 1 week at a time because it could all change very quickly, but for this week, it was harmless. And something positive actually came out of it too. We got a really good Knockouts Fatal 4-Way match. Brooke did not try to interject herself like Karen would. She just stayed in the back and let the wrestlers do their thing. And it was a fun match. The big submission spot was cool. I like the stuff with TNT, how they started off working together, but then they turned on each other because they both wanted to win. It was nice to see some different women on the screen for a change. Great to see Mickie and Tara back. I missed them. But in the end, I think absolutely the right person won. The Velvet Sky thing seems to have concluded now, so this is the only Knockouts match they could make for the pay-per-view that would have any real hype behind it. And at this point, I think the time is finally right for Gail Kim to lose the title. With Sarita not on TV at the moment, she's run through every compelling challenger. Tessmacher is over, she's got momentum, the pay-per-view is in her home state. She's in the best position to capitalize on the big rub that would come from dethroning the longest reigning Knockouts champion of all time. If they do this right, they could make Tessmacher a star this Sunday. Plus, she'd be a first-time champion, so it would be something new and different for the division, which could only be a good thing at this point. I think they should do it. Bully Ray and Joseph Park had a contract signing. Abyss shows up on the monitor at the end and says he's coming back to do something at Slammiversary, we don't know what, and that actually puts some intrigue in this. I'm really curious to see what happens here, and this angle needed something like that because I was never sold on the wrestling match these guys were going to have because the Joseph Park character isn't a wrestler. This was a great segment. We've learned by now that anytime you get these two together, you're going to get something entertaining, and I for one really hope the Joseph Park character sticks around after the pay-per-view. He's been great in this role, especially when Abyss showed up on the monitor, because it's still Chris Park playing both characters. So he had to time that just right to make it look like they were having an actual conversation. And considering it's live, that could not have been easy. I bet there were some nervous people backstage because one slip-up could have ruined that whole thing real easily. I've really gained a new appreciation for Chris Park as a performer because of this storyline. I had no idea the guy was so versatile. And I hope they've got some long-term plans for Joseph Park. I want to see more of this character. They could have him be like the legal representative for different wrestlers, or maybe have him be like a JBL type leading his own faction. That would be awesome. They revisited the Joey Ryan thing with the backstage footage of the gut check fallout. Ryan's pissed off because the judges disregarded the 80-something% of the fans that voted yes on him just because they felt he was disrespectful to three guys he considers irrelevant. And whether you like Joey Ryan or not, you have to admit he made a good point there. This segment, it was really well done. It still felt unscripted even though now we know it's not. It was surprising to me that they did this, just because they've said over and over that the gut check is reality-based, and suddenly they're making an angle out of it. I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed by that. For me, the gut check being unscripted was the most compelling thing about it, but after just 2 months they're revealing that it's a work. So I assume Joey Ryan will be back at some point, and they'll continue this thing with him and Taz, which I'm fine with. I mean, they played off each other great. I'm just a little bummed out, because revealing the gut check to be a work makes the whole thing a little less interesting to me. So far, everything on this show had been really good. I was genuinely enjoying everything. Then Robbie E came out. Haha! Devon was booked to defend the TV title against Robbie again, because apparently he just hasn't been squashed by Devon enough times to take him out of title contention yet.
This alleged superstar is an unworthy opponent.
Making this even more painful is that Devon brought Garrett Bischoff out with him.
Yet again, I am standing before another ignoramus.
Because even though Devon has had no trouble plowing through Robbie E. and Rob Terry separately and together at every turn, Garrett, for some reason, thinks that this time Devon is going to need his help.
This is ridiculous, man, any way you look at it.
So with 3 of the most worthless people on the roster on screen at the same time, Devon and Robbie proceed to have the exact same goddamn match they've been having for months. Devon wins again. Yes! They have a fight to set up the most pointless, I don't give a fuck match in the history of Slammiversary, but what really horrified me enough to turn my hair white was when Madison Rayne came out. So the guy that Madison has a crush on is either an uncharismatic scrub, a lazy, untalented jackass, an uncoordinated oaf, or Devon. TNA, why do you want me to kill myself?
I don't know what my future holds, but I know one thing.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. There's no way out of this, is there? There isn't a single good option. There's no possible combination you could make here that wouldn't suck like a high-flow toilet.
You could take this microphone and shove it up your ass.
Is there a 5th option? Can I vote for none of the above? I'm sorry, I gotta move on from this before I do something to hurt myself.
I will not participate in this charade this evening.
The main event was a 6-man tag, or it would have been if AJ hadn't disappeared with Dixie at the top of the show. So we get Rude, Daniels, and Kaz versus Sting and Angle. The match is alright. It gets better when AJ jumps out of the crowd and helps out, and it ends with Sting submitting Bobby Roode for the 2nd week in a row. And this was preceded by an earlier segment where Roode confronted Hogan, cut a great promo on him, but was interrupted by Sting, who no-sold everything Roode tried to do to him and then kicked his ass. So Sting pretty much made Bobby Roode his bitch this week, which really does nothing to put heat on your heel world champion going into the pay-per-view. In fact, it does the exact opposite. But Booking 101 says that Roode goes over at Slammiversary now, so I'm not going to make a big stink about it. This was a good episode. You take away the TV title segment, and I enjoyed just about everything this week. They got serious about hyping Slammiversary in that they finally got around to announcing the whole card, and every match was built up in some way. I know it's not the best pay-per-view card they've ever had, but at least they tried to hype everything.
What the fuck?
But something that really hurt it was that they waited so damn long to finalize a lot of the matches, which isn't going to do the Slammiversary buy rate any favors. Another major complaint was that some of the storylines aren't constructed to, if not climax, then at least reach a crucial point at the pay-per-view. And I guess that might be by design, but sometimes, like with the AJ Daniels Kaz thing, it feels like awkward writing, like the pay-per-view is just interrupting a story in progress rather than fitting in organically. I know Dixie doesn't like their pay-per-view model, and this is just another sign that they're not really writing for the pay-per-view model, and I guess they haven't for a long time, but still, it feels weird. Sorry this video was late. I had to work this weekend, and next weekend's gonna be a lot worse, so don't expect that one until Monday or Tuesday at the earliest. That's all for now. Enjoy Slammiversary. See you next week.